You write a route handler, 10 lines, maybe 20, and somehow a browser anywhere in the world can call it. Between the packets arriving and your function running, there's a whole machine you didn't build. That machine is the framework, and today we walk through everything it does before your code gets a turn. Here's the claim. In a typical web app, your code is the last 5% of every request. The other 95 is plumbing. Parse the bytes, match the route, run the middleware, call your handler, render the answer. One pipeline, the same every time. Understand that pipeline and two things happen. Frameworks stop being magic, and you finally know what you're standing on. Start at the bottom, with the server itself. Strip the mystique, and a server is just a program, listening on a port. A request arriving means the runtime hands that program a connection. And what flows in is bytes on a socket, a raw stream of text, down the very connection TLS just finished securing. The method, the path, header lines one after another, maybe a body dangling after a blank line. No objects, no params, no parsed JSON. Your operating system hands your process that stream and walks away. Its job ended at delivery. Everything you think of as the request, the method, the cookies, the body, is, at this point, just a convention written in characters. Something has to make sense of it. The first ring is parsing. The framework reads that stream and turns it into structure. This token is the method. This is the path. These lines are headers. Split, decoded, normalized. Content type says the body is JSON, parsed into an object. A form, decoded. Cookies unpacked into a map. And it absorbs the ugly parts you'd never think of. Chunked bodies, strange encodings, malformed input that should be rejected, oversized payloads that should be cut off. What comes out the other side is the request object you've always taken for granted. rec.method, rec.headers, rec.body. Ring 2, routing. The framework holds a table of every route you've declared, and it matches the incoming path against them, patterns included. /users/:ID isn't a real URL, it's a template. The router both picks it as the match and extracts the ID into params for you. Method matters too. A get and a post to the same path can land on different handlers, and when nothing matches at all, the router is what answers 404. Your code was never even a candidate. One request in, exactly one handler out. Ring 3 is the gauntlet, middleware. Before your handler runs, the request walks a chain, logging, then body limits, then auth, then validation. And each link can inspect it, change it, or stop it dead. The order isn't decoration, it's behavior. Put auth before logging, and you never log who got rejected. Put validation before auth, and you're doing work for strangers. Every framework has this pipeline. Some call it middleware, some call it hooks or guards, but the shape is the same. An ordered gauntlet, run for every request. Your code only sees what survives it. And then, finally, your handler. The request is parsed, the route matched, the gauntlet cleared, and the framework calls your function with everything laid out. This is the 5%. Notice how little it has to do. Read the params, apply your business logic, return some data. It doesn't check headers, doesn't parse bodies, doesn't worry about malformed input. The rings already did. That's the deal the framework offers. It handles everything generic about handling requests. So the only code you write is the code only you could write. Your handler returned an object. But the socket doesn't speak objects, so the pipeline now runs in reverse. Rendering. The framework serializes your data to JSON or HTML, sets the content type, picks the status code, stamps the content length, applies compression if the client asked for it, and writes valid HTTP back down the wire, byte by byte. Return a value from a handler, and all of that just happens. Even when your handler throws, the framework catches it and renders a proper error response. instead of leaving the browser hanging on a dead socket. It's the half of the plumbing nobody mentions. Getting in was only half the trip. Now the thought experiment. Delete the framework. None of that work disappears. It just becomes yours. You're writing an HTTP parser and hardening it against every malformed request an internet full of strangers can send. A router with pattern matching and 404s. An auth layer, body limits, error handling that doesn't leak stack traces. And you're maintaining all of it, patching your parser when a new attack shows up, forever. This code isn't hypothetical. Every framework is this code, written by hundreds of contributors, battle-tested by millions of apps. No framework doesn't mean less code. It means you own the code. So frameworks are free? No, they charge in a different currency. You trade control. The pipeline runs their way, and fighting a framework's conventions is worse than having none. You trade transparency. When a request dies somewhere inside ring 3 of somebody else's magic, debugging becomes archaeology. And you board the upgrade treadmill, major versions, migrations, deprecations, all on their schedule. Sometimes the trade genuinely goes the other way. A tiny internal service with 2 endpoints might want a micro framework or just the standard library. The skill isn't loyalty to a framework, it's knowing what the plumbing costs, in both directions. So here's the whole model in one breath. A raw request is just bytes. The framework parses them into a request, routes it to exactly one handler, runs the middleware gauntlet in order, calls your 5%, and renders the answer back into bytes. A framework is the request plumbing you didn't write. And now that you've seen every pipe, you can decide, deliberately, how much of it you want to own. The server understood the request and answered it. But we skipped a question, the one the middleware gauntlet keeps asking. Who are you to this server? Sessions, tokens, JWT, OAuth, 4 ways to answer it, and one wrong default everybody reaches for. That's the auth gate. And it's where we go next.